The stars burned brightly over the jagged mountains of Krilnith, casting an eerie light on the battlefield below. The planet, located on the outer rim of the known galaxy, was once a place of relative peace, its crimson skies and dark, moss-covered plains home to only the toughest flora and fauna. But tonight, Krilnith was bathed in fire, and the scent of ozone and burning metal filled the air as two armies clashed. The Zakri Dominion, a coalition of war-hardened races from across the galaxy, had launched a brutal campaign to bring all neighboring systems under their control. They were led by the Tirkai, a fearsome reptilian race known for their ferocity and unmatched physical prowess. Towering at 8 feet tall, covered in scales as hard as star-forged iron, and wielding weapons capable of tearing a ship hull open, the Tirkai were an army that many believed could not be stopped. On this day, their general, Korvok the Bloodfang, surveyed the battlefield from atop his war behemoth, an armored war beast with cannons grafted to its flesh. Korvok looked over the opposing forces, his golden eyes narrowing. He was used to facing planets that surrendered at the mere sight of his armies, but tonight was different. Tonight he faced humans. The humans were new to the galactic stage, discovered only a few decades prior. The Zakri Dominion had initially ignored them, considering their technology primitive and their biology weak. But humanity's resilience and courage in their initial skirmishes with Zakri scouts had piqued Korvok's curiosity. Now, seeing them arrayed on Krilnith, he finally understood why he had felt compelled to meet them in full force. The humans were a ragtag band of soldiers from every corner of their Earth, some in standard-issue combat armor, others in mismatched plates and carrying weapons from their homeworld, primitive by Dominion standards, railguns, plasma lances, high-caliber firearms. But they had something else, something that Korvok's trained eye noticed, a grim determination, a fire in their eyes he rarely saw outside his own people. At the center of the human forces stood their commander, General Eva Kane, a formidable figure with short-cropped hair, dark eyes that seemed to absorb the light, and a body that, while diminutive compared to the massive Tirkai, radiated a palpable force of will. She was surrounded by her finest soldiers, each with stories etched into their scars, a testament to battles fought and survived. They stood in formation, waiting, utterly calm. Humans? Korvok's voice rumbled across the field through his amplifiers. You stand against the Zakri Dominion. We have crushed 100 worlds, broken empires, and laid waste to civilizations. Surrender now, and I may yet allow some of you to live. A silence fell. Then, General Kane's voice cut through the noise, magnified by her own helmet speakers. Korvok, she said, her tone almost mocking, you've faced 100 worlds, but you've never faced us. And let me be clear, if you come for humanity, you will bleed. Korvok sneered, a flash of sharpened teeth in the dim light. He raised a clawed hand and signaled his forces to advance. The Zakri Dominion's battle machines, towering constructs known as Vorskr, lumbered forward. Each Vorskr was an imposing bipedal war machine with heavy artillery mounted on its shoulders, designed to level cities in a single volley. Flanked by Tirkai infantry armed with plasma scythes and shock rifles, they marched with the precision of a tidal wave, confident in their overwhelming superiority. But as the Vorskr advanced, the humans did something Korvok had never seen an opposing army do. They stood their ground. In moments, a wave of humanity surged forward, using small, agile vehicles called vanguards, hovercraft armed with armor-piercing railguns and laser turrets. Small by Dominion standards, but lightning-fast and deadly. The first exchange of fire was explosive. The Vorskr unleashed a storm of plasma rounds that melted stone and vaporized anything in its path. Yet, the humans moved with a strange precision, weaving through the blast zones and returning fire with pinpoint accuracy. One Vorskr stumbled, its left leg blown out by a concentrated burst from a cluster of Vanguard hovercraft. Before the Dominion forces could react, a group of human soldiers descended upon it with EMP grenades, crippling its systems and leaving it vulnerable. Korvok's sneer faded as he watched his prized war machines falter. These humans, these fragile creatures, were using strategy and tactics he had not anticipated. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and yet they fought as if they had nothing to lose. He clenched his fists, realizing that they were fearless. They weren't fighting to survive, they were fighting to win. High above the battlefield, Korvac's flagship, the Bloodfang, watched over the conflict. Its main gun, the Stars Here cannon, was capable of turning entire planets into barren wastelands. From his command bridge, Korvac ordered a precise orbital strike on the human front lines. But as the cannon charged, a flicker of blue light erupted from the human ranks. He watched, mystified, as a group of human engineers deployed a network of small, shield-generating drones that formed a protective barrier across the battlefield. The energy shield, though clearly straining, absorbed the brunt of the Starshear's blast, sparing countless human lives. Korvac's clawed hand slammed down on his command console. This was no primitive species. These humans had invented shield technology that rivaled Dominion barriers, with far fewer resources and likely less than a century of development. He began to understand the implications of such ingenuity. If humanity survived this day, they would be a force to reckon with for ages. But he would not allow that. "Deploy the Ngrat," he commanded, his voice dark with intent. The Ngrat were a special division of Tirkai warriors, genetically enhanced and cybernetically modified, wearing exoskeletons of black alloy that made them nearly impervious to small arms fire. They were the Dominion's answer to insurgent species that dared to resist. The Ngrat dropped from assault ships directly into the human ranks, wielding particle glaives that crackled with deadly energy. They slashed through the human defenses with ease, carving a brutal path through the front line. But rather than retreat, the humans only seemed to dig deeper, regrouping, falling back only to draw the Ngrat into carefully laid ambushes. Explosions erupted from hidden mines, and human snipers picked off exposed Ngrat at the joints of their exoskeletons with a precision that Korvac had never seen. In the midst of the chaos, General Kane herself moved toward the Ngrat line. With a plasma rifle slung over her shoulder, she charged, flanked by her personal guard, the Iron Wolves. They fought with brutal efficiency, tearing into the Ngrat with unrelenting fury. At one point, Kane even went hand-to-hand with a towering Tirkai, sidestepping its swings and landing a devastating blow to its chest with an armor-piercing blade. Korvac's admiration was tinged with fear. He could feel it now, a gnawing, unsettling fear as he watched this small, fragile species push back his forces. This wasn't a simple victory in the making. This was the awakening of a force that could challenge the entire Dominion. As the battle raged, he realized he had underestimated not just their resilience, but their capacity for war. His species and allies had spent millennia honing their physical prowess, relying on brute strength and advanced technology. But humanity had learned to turn their limitations into strengths. They were adaptable, resourceful, and, as Korvac realized with a sense of dread, utterly relentless. Even as Dominion reinforcements poured onto the field, the humans held, their tactics evolving with each wave. Their war machines, nothing compared to Dominion's in size, proved devastatingly effective in their hands. Even when they fell, the humans would strip their parts, reconfigure them, and throw them back onto the battlefield with ingenuity that defied belief. Hours passed, but the humans never stopped. With each failed assault, the Dominion forces grew more desperate, more fatigued. Korvac's war behemoth stumbled, an explosion rocking it as human artillery managed to breach its armor. General Korvac, one of his officers, hissed over the comms, "Our forces are breaking." For the first time, Korvac felt a pang of uncertainty. He glanced at the faces of his warriors, the cracks in their armor, the fear in their eyes. This would not be the last time he faced humanity, but he was beginning to understand that his days of easy conquest were over. The galaxy would never be the same. Korvac pulled back from the front lines, issuing a rare retreat order. The Tirkai general was seething. He had expected to crush this small, insubordinate species in one fell swoop, but now his forces were bleeding, and his pride was wounded. This was no longer a mere conquest. This was a war for survival. He would have to shift tactics, adapt, and think like his enemy if he hoped to prevail. High above, in the Bloodfang's command center, Korvac gathered his senior officers, scaly, battle-worn figures, each from a different species within the Dominion. Their holograms flared in front of him, each broadcasting from different ships across the fleet. "We must regroup and launch a planet-wide strike," growled General Cothran of the Gartil, a towering arachnid species known for their stealth and cunning. "Humans are adaptable, but they have limits. A full-scale bombardment will overwhelm them." Korvac glanced at Cothran, unimpressed. "A full-scale bombardment? Did you not witness their shields deflect the Starshear strike?" "No, General. Brute force alone will not break them." Cothran's mandibles clicked in frustration, but he remained silent. "This is not a battle we can win through strength alone," Korvac continued, pacing slowly. "They are creative, resourceful, and relentless. We need to learn more about their tactics, their psychology." "Psychology," scoffed another officer, Commander Rel, a rigid and calculating Crixian, a species known for their logic and mechanical minds. "Korvac, they are primitives. They lack honor. They lack code." "Enough," Korvac snarled, silencing the room. "They lack nothing. If anything, they possess something we have overlooked for far too long: the fire of desperation. We are used to winning. They are used to fighting for survival. And I will not underestimate them again." He turned to his lieutenant, a Tirkai warrior named Vorkith. "Prepare an infiltration team. I want eyes on their command center." Vorkith gave a low bow and left without a word. General Eva Kane's face was set in stone as she examined the latest data coming in from their scouts. The Zakri Dominion forces had pulled back, regrouping in the mountains to the north. It wasn't a victory, not yet, but it was the first time any species had forced the Dominion into a retreat. "General," said Captain Desai, her communications officer, her eyes wide with disbelief. "They're holding position. They're pulling back their artillery, fortifying." Kane looked up sharply, a flicker of satisfaction in her eyes. "They're planning something bigger. Maybe even another orbital strike." She activated her own holographic projector, bringing up an image of Krilnith's bleak landscape, dotted with enemy encampments. "If we stay on defense, we'll be crushed when they send in their next wave. We need to stay mobile." Her chief strategist, Commander Jason Ford, nodded grimly. "Their numbers are overwhelming, but their tactics are predictable. They always assume we'll break. What if we turn their own strategy against them? What do you have in mind?" Kane asked, her voice low. "We've noticed that their heavy artillery needs time to set up and recalibrate between strikes. If we could launch an all-out assault on their artillery positions, we might catch them off guard and push deeper into their territory." Kane weighed the risks. It was a gamble, but at this point, they were already running on desperation. She gave Ford a hard look. "Prepare our units, and give me every available fighter pilot. We're going to show them how humans fight." Vorkith, Korvac's trusted lieutenant, moved silently through the darkness, leading a team of Tirkai operatives trained in infiltration. They were elite warriors, cloaked in advanced camouflage suits that bent light around them, rendering them almost invisible to the naked eye. They crept toward the human command center, observing every detail with a cold, clinical precision. As they neared, Vorkith paused, his senses sharp. The humans were more active than expected, moving equipment and personnel with practiced urgency. His sharp eyes spotted General Kane, commanding her forces from a fortified bunker. Even from a distance, he could feel the energy radiating from her, a calm authority that he found almost unsettling. "Watch her," he murmured to his team. "She's their fire." The Tirkai watched as Kane and her soldiers prepped for something big. Vorkith activated a communication channel back to Korvac, whispering his observations in real time. But just as he finished his report, one of his operatives stumbled on a tripwire. An alarm blared, piercing the night air. "Human defense perimeter activated." "They've spotted us," hissed Vorkith, cursing under his breath. Kane turned at the sound of the alarm, her eyes narrowing. "We have infiltrators," she said coldly. "Activate the countermeasures." The humans had been expecting an infiltration, and Kane's engineers had rigged a series of automated turrets and EMP mines around the perimeter of their command post. In moments, a barrage of fire erupted from hidden emplacements, and the Tirkai operatives found themselves caught in a brutal crossfire. Vorkith barely managed to dodge an EMP mine, his camouflage flickering. With a guttural snarl, he gave the signal to retreat. But as he fell back, he locked eyes with General Kane across the battlefield. Her gaze was icy, unyielding, and for the first time in his life, Vorkith felt vulnerable. As he scrambled back to Dominion territory, Vorkith realized the truth. The humans were not simply defending. They were hunting. Korvac listened intently as Vorkith relayed his findings. "She is unlike any commander I have faced," Vorkith admitted, his voice shaken. "They anticipated us. They countered our moves before we could make them." Korvac's jaw tightened. He had underestimated them once, but no longer. If humans wanted to play the game of strategy, he would meet them on their terms. "Then we adapt, gather our intelligence units, and recalibrate the Sable Sun Disruptor," he said, referring to a Dominion weapon capable of destabilizing shield technology. "We'll turn their strengths into weaknesses." Vorkith saluted, though unease flickered in his gaze. He knew this would not be enough to break the humans. They were up against something unprecedented. But Korvac was confident. He knew they simply had to keep pressure on humanity's limited resources on the ground. General Kane received reports that the Dominion was mobilizing an unknown weapon. She frowned, trying to calculate what it could be, but nothing prepared her for the shockwave that followed. The sky over Krilnith's battlefield lit up with a brilliant purple flare, and the shield drones crackled, struggling to maintain their cohesion. Her communications specialist shouted, "General, they're hitting us with a disruptor field. The shields are destabilizing." Kane's mind raced. They needed to find and destroy the source of the disruptor, but it was hidden somewhere within the enemy's ranks. "Send out the scouts. Focus all recon on finding that weapon," Kane commanded. "If they're trying to disrupt our defenses, then we'll give them something to be disrupted about." As her troops mobilized to locate the Sable Sun Disruptor, Kane prepared a surprise of her own. She authorized the use of the Mjolnir Protocol, a series of experimental orbital drop pods loaded with heavy artillery units and automated defense turrets. These drop pods would deliver concentrated firepower straight into enemy territory. The Dominion troops were still marveling at the power of the disruptor when the first Mjolnir pods hit. Explosions ripped through the sky as the pods crashed into Dominion lines, unloading automated turrets and heavy assault units. Korvac stared in disbelief from the command center as the human assault intensified. The Mjolnir units were wreaking havoc, tearing through Dominion positions with ruthless precision. Even as Tirkai warriors struggled to push back as the humans advanced, clawing their way through line after line. At last, human scouts located the Sable Sun Disruptor. A team of specially trained demolitions experts, called the Hellhounds, was deployed to take it down. With swift, lethal efficiency, the Hellhounds slipped through enemy lines and reached the disruptor. They planted charges around its core and retreated as the device exploded, sending a cascade of shattered energy across the battlefield. In an instant, the human shields were restored for the first time. Korvac knew the taste of true fear. His Dominion army was bleeding out. His war machines were falling. His infiltrators useless. And the humans, they only seemed to grow fiercer, pushing deeper into his territory, moving with the quiet resolve of a storm. Korvac realized then that the humans would not stop. They would fight until he had nothing left. This was no longer a conquest. This was a message, and he could feel the dread building in his chest. The battle for Krilnith would be remembered as the day the galaxy truly understood the strength and fury of humanity. The Zakri Dominion was only the first to witness it, but across the stars, others would learn of this relentless species. And as humanity advanced, the galaxy would come to realize the era of uncontested dominion was over. The Zakri Dominion was reeling. Reports from Krilnith were spreading like wildfire, filling every corner of Dominion space with rumors and fear. Whispers circulated among Dominion officers, many of whom had never seen defeat, and even fewer understood how these humans, a species they had once dismissed as irrelevant, had turned back the Dominion's most powerful forces. Some dismissed the reports as exaggerations. Others, like Korvac, knew the truth was far worse than any rumor. The Galactic Council, a body of leaders from the Dominion's member species, summoned Korvac to explain the staggering losses on Krillnith. They met in the Hall of Talos, a vast chamber on the Dominion's capital planet of Kurhan, the air thick with the scent of incense and the hum of shifting energy fields. Korvac entered, flanked by his honor guard. He felt the eyes of his superiors on him, each gaze as sharp and unforgiving as a plasma blade. The council, a circle of towering and ancient alien leaders, radiated impatience. Counselor Zerna, a Connie with translucent skin and a body that shimmered like liquid metal, narrowed her 6 eyes at him. General Korvac, you stand before this council accused of gross negligence. How could a single primitive species, barely advanced enough for galactic travel, repel the Zakri Dominion on Krillnith? Korvac's jaw clenched, but he forced himself to remain calm. These humans are not as primitive as we believed. They possess a unique adaptability, an unparalleled resilience in the face of destruction. They are unlike any species we have encountered. Excuses, hissed Counselor Vaetol, a Karen with a bony, segmented exoskeleton. Our fleets have conquered 100 worlds, crushed species that could turn stars into weapons. And yet humans are our obstacle. Korvac's patience frayed. You don't understand. They don't fight for dominion or conquest. They fight as if their very survival depends on it, with a desperation and ingenuity we cannot predict. Every time we counter one of their tactics, they come up with 2 more. Enough! Counselor Zerna leaned forward, her eyes darkening. Then perhaps it is time to extinguish their flame altogether. If we can't overpower them in battle, we shall strike at the heart of their spirit. Their homeworld, Earth. The room went silent, and Korvac's stomach tightened. A direct assault on Earth was unprecedented. He had fought many battles, but an invasion of a species' homeworld was risky. It often fueled more resistance. And with humanity, he suspected that resistance would only become more dangerous. General Eva Kane's nerves were running hot after the victory over the Disruptor, but she could not afford a moment of complacency. The Zakri Dominion's forces had suffered a massive blow, but humanity's resources were thinning, and she knew the next strike would be deadlier. As she surveyed the battlefield's wreckage, Kane's comms crackled to life. General Kane, this is Admiral Lorik from the Earth Defense Council. We've intercepted intelligence suggesting the Zakri Dominion may be planning a full-scale assault on Earth. Kane's blood ran cold. An invasion of Earth would spell disaster. Humanity had barely enough to defend itself on Krillnith, and Earth, despite its defenses, wasn't prepared for the full fury of the Dominion. We have to make sure they never get the chance, she said, her eyes hardening. If we want to save Earth, we need to take the fight to them. We can't afford to wait. Are you suggesting an assault on Dominion territories? Lorik asked, a note of incredulity in his voice. That's exactly what I'm suggesting, Kane replied. We hit their home turf, show them that humanity won't cower in the face of their threats. Within hours, humanity's leaders gathered in a secure command bunker deep beneath the Krillnith surface. Military officers, engineers, and intelligence operatives pored over maps of the Dominion's central worlds, studying every weakness, every vulnerability. Kane outlined her vision for a daring mission, one that would strike at the Dominion's nerve centers, crippling their ability to invade Earth. Operation Iron Hammer was devised. It would involve a series of coordinated strikes on Dominion supply lines, communications hubs, and fleet assembly points. The mission was high risk, almost suicidal, but humanity had little choice. The first target, the Dominion shipyards at Garukthan, where the Dominion's most formidable dreadnoughts were assembled. To execute this plan, humanity would deploy their elite strike teams, codenamed Black Phoenix. Comprised of humanity's most skilled warriors, hackers, and pilots, Black Phoenix had been formed for operations exactly like this. The Black Phoenix fleet dropped out of hyperspace in the Garukthan system, emerging from the darkness like a storm on the horizon. Garukthan, a massive orbital shipyard, was heavily fortified with layers of anti-ship turrets, defensive drones, and Dominion battlecruisers that dwarfed anything humanity had ever seen. Kane was in the lead ship, her eyes focused and unblinking as the shipyard came into view. They had one advantage, the element of surprise. "Black Phoenix, you know the mission," she said, her voice steady. "We hit hard, we hit fast. Don't stop until we're either dead or victorious." The first volley of missiles streaked toward Garukhan, detonating with seismic force. Dominion turrets whirred to life, filling the void with streams of plasma. But Black Phoenix's ships weaved and danced, moving unpredictably as they closed in. Captain Rafe Mercer, Kane's second-in-command, piloted his ship with deadly precision, strafing the shipyard's defenses and clearing a path for the strike teams. "General, we're breaching the perimeter now. Engaging boarders." The boarding teams, armed with high-yield explosives, breaching charges, and energy rifles, pierced into the heart of Garukhan's main control station. Inside, Dominion engineers and soldiers scrambled to defend their posts, but Black Phoenix's operatives moved like shadows, taking them down one by one. In the control room, a squad of Dominion soldiers attempted to hold their ground, but they were no match for humanity's finest. Kane's soldiers swept through, overriding the Dominion security systems and taking control of Garukhan's defense grids. Within minutes, the Dominion found itself under fire from its own guns. Black Phoenix hacked into the control systems and turned the shipyard's powerful turrets on the Dominion battlecruisers. Beams of energy tore through Dominion hulls as ships exploded, one after another. Watching the chaos unfold from the flagship, Kane felt a grim satisfaction. This was humanity's warning to the Dominion. No planet was safe, no fleet untouchable. News of the attack on Garukhan reached Korvac swiftly. His anger burned hot, but beneath it lay a gnawing respect. These humans were not like any enemy he had faced. They fought with cunning and courage, refusing to yield no matter the odds. They reminded him, he realized, of his own people in their ancient days of conquest. The Galactic Council's response was swift and ruthless. If humanity wanted to bring the fight to Dominion space, the Dominion would respond in kind. They authorized Korvac to launch an assault on Earth, a strike meant not just to conquer, but to annihilate. But Korvac had other plans. Destroying Earth would be straightforward. To truly break humanity, however, he needed to undermine their spirit. He dispatched elite infiltration teams to sow terror on Earth's major cities, destabilizing the human governments, creating chaos, fear, and doubt. Korvac's agents infiltrated Earth, targeting human leaders, sabotaging infrastructure, and spreading false intelligence. A campaign of psychological warfare began. Fear swept through Earth's population as reports of sabotage and assassination circulated. Humanity was a resilient species, but even the strongest spirit could fracture under enough pressure back on Krillnith. General Kane quickly became aware of the Dominion's tactics on Earth. She called an emergency meeting, her mind racing with possibilities. The Dominion's psychological warfare was meant to fracture human resolve, but Kane understood that it could also unify them. She seized the opportunity to speak directly to the people of Earth. Broadcasting to every screen across the solar system, Kane's voice was calm and steady. "People of Earth, the Dominion believes they can break us with fear. They underestimate our strength. We have always fought for survival, and we will not stop now. Earth is our home, and we will defend it with everything we have. Together, we are unstoppable." Her words rippled across Earth, galvanizing people from every nation. Civilians mobilized to support the war effort. Factories switched to producing war machines, and volunteers flooded recruitment centers. Humanity's will hardened, a force even Korvac could not anticipate. Meanwhile, Black Phoenix and Kane's ground forces orchestrated a series of retaliatory strikes. Using the intelligence they had gathered from Dominion space, they targeted high-ranking Dominion officials and critical infrastructure, creating chaos in Dominion-controlled sectors. The Dominion's forces began to fracture under the strain. Leaving entire systems vulnerable, Korvac launched his invasion fleet, a dread armada designed to smash through Earth's defenses in a single, devastating blow. The skies over Earth darkened as Dominion ships descended, filling the atmosphere with the rumble of engines and the glint of alien weapons. Humanity was waiting. Earth's orbit was fortified with newly developed weaponized satellites, railgun platforms, and an array of orbital defense stations. Earth's most skilled pilots, bolstered by the Black Phoenix fleet, met the Dominion ships head-on. The battle was a spectacle of fire and fury. Explosions lit up the sky as railgun slugs and plasma beams sliced through Dominion hulls. Black Phoenix pilots wove through enemy lines with surgical precision, dismantling the Dominion's formation and forcing their dreadnoughts to scatter. On the ground, Korvac's infiltration teams launched a final push to destabilize Earth's leadership, but they were met with resistance as organized civilian militias rose to counter the Dominion's agents. Every corner of Earth became a battlefield, every city a fortress after hours of relentless fighting. The Dominion fleet began to falter. Kane seized the moment, ordering an all-out assault on Korvac's flagship, the Blood Fawn. Black Phoenix fighters swarmed the massive ship, breaching its defenses and boarding it from every side. Inside the flagship's command center, Korvac stood his ground, facing Kane's forces with defiance in his eyes. But he could not hold them back forever. As Kane's forces took control of the Bloodfang, Korvac found himself face-to-face with the enemy commander who had turned the tide of the galaxy. Kane looked into his eyes and saw the arrogance stripped away, leaving only resignation. And in that moment, as Korvac surrendered, the Dominion felt its first true defeat. But the story was far from over. Humanity had proven its might, and the galaxy watched, wondering, would humanity become the peacekeepers they promised, or would they be the next great conquerors? Korvac stood in silence, watching as his once mighty flagship, the Blood Fawn, crumbled around him. His Dominion fleet was in full retreat, broken and scattered across the void, while Earth's defenders tightened their hold on the last pockets of resistance. The mighty Zakri Dominion had been humbled by humanity, a species they had once dismissed as insignificant. General Eva Kane stood before him, her face illuminated by the flickering lights of the crumbling bridge. Her eyes bore the fierce determination of a commander who had fought tooth and nail for her people, and yet she held a profound sadness within them. She saw a defeated enemy, not a monster. This was not just a victory. It was the end of an era. The galaxy would forever remember the day humanity rose. Korvac, standing tall despite his wounds, spoke with surprising calmness. "You've shown me something, Kane. Your people fight as if possessed by fire. It has shaken my people's very spirit." Kane's gaze was unflinching. "Our fight was never about power or conquest. It was survival for our home, for our children. You underestimated that." Korvac chuckled bitterly. "Perhaps we underestimated ourselves too. We have become comfortable, complacent. Your kind reminded us of something our ancestors once knew, that strength isn't just in the numbers or the weapons, but in the will to protect what truly matters." The Blood Fong shuddered, the sound of internal explosions echoing through the bridge. Kane looked at Korvac, her mind racing with conflicting thoughts. "Korvac," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "surrender yourself and your fleet. If you agree to stand trial before the Galactic Council, Earth will call for mercy." Korvac's eyes, once filled with the fires of conquest, softened. "Mercy? After all the suffering I've caused?" He sighed, lowering his gaze. "I never imagined my end would be at the mercy of those I sought to conquer." Kane extended her hand. "Our war ends here. We have no desire for vengeance." For a moment, Korvac hesitated. Then, slowly, he placed his hand in hers, sealing a pact that would echo across the stars. News of Korvac's surrender spread across the galaxy like wildfire. His admission of defeat shattered the Dominion's iron hold, inspiring revolts and rebellions in oppressed systems. Alliances that had long been kept in check by fear now turned on the Dominion, and countless species rose up, emboldened by humanity's example. The Dominion's empire, once thought unbreakable, began to unravel from within. The Galactic Council convened to try Korvac and his highest generals, and for the first time, humanity was offered a seat at the table. General Eva Kane was appointed as humanity's representative, a reluctant leader, but one who commanded respect throughout the galaxy. Kane stood before the council as a war hero, an unyielding symbol of Earth's resilience. She addressed the assembly of alien leaders, her voice calm but firm. We did not fight to replace one empire with another. We fought for freedom, for ourselves, and for every world crushed under the Dominion's rule. Let this be a turning point. Let us rebuild a galaxy that thrives on unity, not fear. The council erupted in applause, and Kane's words echoed across countless worlds. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as defenders of freedom. For the first time, the council passed a decree to ban any empire from waging wars of conquest, marking the end of an age of tyranny. In the years that followed, humanity forged alliances with once rival species, forming the United Galactic Federation. This new alliance was dedicated to peacekeeping and cooperation, creating a network of worlds that shared resources, knowledge, and technology. Korvac, now a prisoner on Kurhan, had a single visitor every year, Kane herself. She spoke to him not as an enemy, but as an equal, sharing stories of how the galaxy had changed, how old enemies had become friends. Korvac grew to respect her deeply, recognizing the rare strength it took to show mercy to a fallen foe. "You've created something truly powerful," he admitted during one of their conversations, gazing at the stars through his cell's window. "Something far greater than conquest." Kane smiled. "That's what we fought for, Korvac. Not power, but hope. A future worth living in." Decades passed, and the Battle of Krillnith became a legend, the tale told in every language and culture. Statues of the battle's heroes were erected on worlds across the galaxy. Children grew up hearing stories of the humans who fought against impossible odds and showed the galaxy what true strength meant. The name Earth became synonymous with resilience and unity. Humanity had set a new standard, not just through their strength in battle, but in their ability to extend a hand to their former enemies, to envision a future of cooperation. And even as new challenges emerged, and new species joined the galactic community, the memory of the war that changed everything lived on, beacon of hope for every world, every race. Humanity's place in the galaxy was cemented, not by fear, but by respect. The galaxy was indeed never the same again, and it was better for it.